Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jeevanam Kavibhiriditam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadatatam Bhuviganantiye Bhurida Janaha. So we were discussing Sri Ram Krishna who went into Samadhi at Lily Cottage, Keshav Chandra Sen's house. It is known as Kamal Kutir, and Kamal Kutir was also known in English as Lily Cottage. So Thakur has been sitting there for quite some time. He is impatiently waiting for Keshav because Keshav was not well. So naturally, uh, he was concerned because he was physically not well, and Keshav's disciples tell him humbly that Keshav is resting for a while, but it will not be long before he comes. So Sri Ramakrishna, like a small child, is getting impatient. He is so keen. He loved Keshav very much because he wanted him to get well soon. And Keshav was suffering from a very serious disease. So his disciples and members of his family were very careful. They were taking good care of him. And Thakur, but at the same time, Thakur was very keen. For some reason, he was very keen to see Keshav. Perhaps he knew that he would not live long. So Sri Ramakrishna is telling Keshav's disciples, look, what is the need for him to come? Why can't I go inside to see him? He did not. He was so humble, Sri Ramakrishna, that he said, if he is a patient, and why do you trouble him? Let me go. I will go and see him inside. You don't have to dress him and bring him out if it's inconvenient for him. Then Prasanna was there, humbly says, no, sir, he will be here shortly. Sri Ramakrishna says, go on. You are making an unnecessary fuss. Let me go in. So Prasanna talks about Keshav to divert Sri Ramakrishna's mind. They somehow feel, or Keshav Chandra himself feels, that he should go and meet the master, not the master come and, or Sri Ramakrishna should come and meet him. Because that he had so much respect for Sri Ramakrishna, Keshav Chandra Sen, though he was one of the leaders of Brahmo Samaj, but he knew the greatness of Sri Ramakrishna and did not want uh, him to be put in trouble by coming in and all those things. He said it's not proper for him to come in. I'll go. But because he was sick, it was taking some time. So Prasanna says he is in a different state of mind. He talks to mother like you. The mother speaks to him and he listens, laughs and cries. So Keshav Chandra Sen was in a very ecstatic state towards the end of his life, thanks to his devotion to the Divine Mother. Though as Brahmo followers, they were not supposed to worship any personal god. But here we see Keshav was full of emotions, and one of his disciples or well-wishers, Prasanna, says, Keshav talks to the mother of the universe. Hearing her, he sometimes laughs and sometimes weeps. So that is what they understood of Keshav Chandra Sen's states, or different states of mind he was undergoing. Thakur is overwhelmed with emotion by after he heard this, that he is now and then thinks of one now and then talking to the mother of the universe, hearing her, and sometimes laughs and weeps. These are the signs that one has had a wonderful vision of the Divine Mother. And Thakur quickly passes into Samadhi because this very idea of becoming one with the infinite Brahman or the Ishta, whom we consider as Divine Mother, was such a great experience that it inspires Sri Ramakrishna just to know that Keshav was in that state and he himself goes into Samadhi. So this is a wonderful meeting of two souls. one of whom was though the founder of a order, a founder of a different sect within Hinduism, the Brahmo Samaj, comes here. He was not the founder, but he was one of the leaders of the Brahmo Samaj. But he comes to Sri Ramakrishna with the humble attitude of a devotee. And the only reason because he, according to Sri Ramakrishna, Keshav Chandra Sen was a great devotee of the Divine Mother. His old samskaras, before he converted to the Brahmo Samaj faith, perhaps his inherent or latent samskaras were full of the Divine Mother. So, towards the end of his life, when he realized that he is missing something, so he starts repeating the Holy Mother's or repeating the Divine Mother's name more and more. This was known to Sri Ramakrishna. So that is why he had so much respect for Keshav Chandra Sen. It is winter, so Thakur is clad in a warm coat of green Kashmiri with a shawl over it. His body is erect, his eyes fixed. He is completely merged in samadhi. He remains in that state for a long time. He sees his samadhi is not coming to an end. So these are the words recorded by the master. So the color of the coat which Sri Ramakrishna wore is known here. It was green, a green Kashmiri coat, whereas there was a shawl on the top of it. Sri Ramakrishna had wrapped a shawl. This green Kashmiri coat is still displayed in one of the rooms of Master Mashai's house, which has become a memorial and has been handed over to the Ramakrishna Mission. So there is a coat, the same coat, the green Kashmiri coat, which he used to wear during winter. And there was a shawl over it. His body is erect, his eyes are fixed. Speaking of Swami Vivekananda, whom he had, he's describing Swami Vivekananda, that his eyes were fixed. He is completely merged in samadhi. He remains in that state for a long time. His samadhi is not coming to an end. So, immediately, M is making a remark. Of course, that was which was shown to him. Whatever he saw, he has created a word picture of the same and presented it before the readers. So he saw Sri Ramakrishna sitting with a green warm coat, Kashmiri wool, and then a shawl was wrapped around it. His body was erect, his eyes fixed, means he was in a state of bhava, or he was in a state of samadhi, and he is completely merged in samadhi. So you see, he remains in this state for a long time, and his samadhi is not coming to an end. Now they were a bit frightened, but at the same time they knew that it was a common occurrence for Sri Ramakrishna to pass away, or maybe to go into this state which made him ecstatic and made him go into various kinds of samadhi. Now it is evening, the time is evening, he is still waiting for Keshav Chandra Sen. When he heard the description which Prasanna gave of Keshav Sen, though he was bedridden or maybe he was taking rest, but whenever he prayed, all these things also used to happen to Keshav Chandra Sen. So hearing that, Sri Ramakrishna is delighted. He knew in the heart of his hearts, he is a votary or is a worshipper of the Divine Mother. So no matter what ideology they believe in, ultimately it is the Divine Shakti that will bestow her grace upon him. And without that, he cannot succeed either in the secular world or less so in the spiritual world. Now there is a lot of furniture in the room. He was a very prosperous person, and this Lily Cottage was also, the whole house was full of furniture, a couch, chairs, coat hanger, and also a lamp. Thakur is made to sit on the couch. He didn't come out immediately. He said, please ask Thakur to wait on that couch. I'll immediately I'll try to come. As he sits down, again he loses outer consciousness and merges into ecstasy. That is what happens to Sri Ramakrishna. So, casting his glance on the couch, he mutters something as one who is intoxicated. Now, the samadhi or the bhava has become so deep that he acts as if he is intoxicated. It's not that he was physically intoxicated, it's a mental state where you feel immensely satisfied. You feel a sense of immense gratitude from whom we don't know. We may have just, he may have just done something normal, but his ecstatic state attracted everybody. Sri Ramakrishna is, so even though he was not showing any outer sign of spirituality, it was the spirituality which he could not hide. It just got exposed. And that spirituality influenced a lot of people. So one need not wait to see the activities or the Leela of the Lord to reach a logical conclusion soon. It will have to wait. The best things are got by waiting. So, casting his glass on the couch, he musters something as one intoxicated. It says, it was of some use before. What is the need for it now? So, he was now not keen. Suddenly, a desire had come that this gentleman would, Keshav Chandra Sen was being described by a gentleman whose name was Prasanna. So they expected that at least Prasanna will come. But he says, what is the use of it now? It was of some use before, but what is it? What is the need for it now? What does he mean by that? So, of course, he was muttering this as if he was excited, Sri Ramakrishna, but there is a deeper meaning. He perhaps he was feeling disgusted that when the thing was ripe, I could not see him or I could not meet him. And now the whole thing has got exhausted. That period is gone. Now he can't relish it anymore. So he says it was of some use before. What is it? What is the need for it now? So looking at Rakhal, in the meantime, Rakhal has come, by whose presence Sri Ramakrishna used to go into ecstasy. He used to say in the previous birth, Rakhal was a companion of Sri Krishna. So naturally, a companion of Sri Krishna would be born with divine qualities. Now, the next topic which M is giving is the vision of the mother of the universe and conversation with her. Immortality of the soul, that is the subheading. Immortality of the soul, what does it mean? And what is the vision of the mother of the universe and the immortality of the soul, how they are connected? That will be explained in this conversation. What does Thakur behold as he talks? So what was perhaps the mind when he was M was busy, maybe cooking or collecting fruits for offering and all those things. He was a bit busy. So Thakur says, what does Thakur behold as he talks? He says, oh good, so you had gone inside. Oh mother, come, how you show out, how you show off in your Banarasi sari. So this is the vision Sri Ramakrishna is getting. So he is muttering to himself, oh mother, you have come. That means he has had a wonderful vision of the divine mother of the universe, and that also in a wonderful Banarasi sari. It is a sari made of Banarasi silk. It's a very expensive and hand woven sari which is supposed to have a lot of silk in that Banarasi sari and some embroidery, sometimes gold embroidery or silver embroidery. So mother says, please don't take the trouble. Come and sit down. Do sit. So this is what Sri Ramakrishna says. He goes into ecstasy, seeing the divine vision of uh, the mother wearing a Banarasi sari. So Thakur's ecstasy is continuing now, and the room is well lighted. Brahmo devotees are all around him. Latu, Rakhal, M, and others are also seated near him. Thakur talks spontaneously in the state of bhava. Now, Sri Krishna is just coming down. When he is in the highest state, obviously he cannot answer questions, he cannot um, talk, or he is in a totally different mode. So now, but since he has come down a little bit, and Thakur talks spontaneously, when he just comes out of his highest state in which he experiences, either by, I mean, whatever way he has experienced this vision, uh, his ecstasy is still continuing. It is not that he sees the vision and then it vanishes. No, the room is well lighted. Brahmos devotees are all around me. The reason is Thakur always liked that there should be a lot of light. There should be, you may say, the room should be well lit. He never liked dark, a dark atmosphere, either in the room or outside. He was full of energy. So that's why he wanted the room to be lighted well. And Brahmo devotees, naturally, uh, he could see a lot of Brahmo devotees sitting around him. Rakal, Latu, M, and others are also seated near him. So Thakur talks spontaneously in the state of bhava. Now he is in a very high state, and seeing these wonderful disciples gathered together, he also gets inspired. And he says, the soul, the body, and the soul. That's what Sri Krishna says. The body has come and it will go, but the soul is immortal. It is just like a beetle. Then he gives a wonderful example. You see, take for example a beetle nut. If the nut is ripe, the shell does not adhere to the nut. In the unripe state, it is very difficult to get the shell apart from the nut. So there are two options now. Somebody gives you a beetle nut with, of course, the shell. So there are two options. You can remove the shell, or maybe you can buy it, and in the unripe state, it is very difficult to get the shell apart from the nut because it is wet. So it is, everybody has observed that if the nut is ripe, then we no longer require to remove the shells because it has served its purpose. The nut has become ripe. Whereas if it is raw, then the flesh refuses to uh, detach itself from the nut which is inside, and people are more interested in the nut. Nobody wants the uh, outer covering. The shell is not important. It has to be, it gives protection in the early stages, but afterwards that those nuts have to be disposed if we are not using them. Now, in that unripe state, it is very difficult to get the shell apart from the nut. So it is very difficult to say. It may be very easy to say that you separate the nut just as you separate uh, the flesh, separate the flesh from the nut itself. In spiritual life also, you have to rescue or maybe separate your spirituality so that you don't fall a victim to the worldly tendencies. So Thakur says so intelligently, he says, in the unripe state, it is very difficult to get the shell apart from its heart. When you have seen her, that is the Divine Mother, when you have attained her, realized God, when God body consciousness totally vanishes, that is in samadhi, one feels that the soul is separate from the body. So this is a unique experience which Sri Ramakrishna could feel, that feeling of transcending the body. We speak of transcending the body, but our body, chit, jada, granthi, that which attaches the body to the mind. There is a common location in the heart where the vibrations of the chitta and the vibrations of the jada, that is the everything that is part of prakriti, So Prakriti, according to him, he is so difficult. It's like difficult to remove the Prakriti may not be important for one who wants to attain consciousness. But once Prakriti comes in contact with this Jiva, hood, or limited consciousness, then it is it becomes difficult because it gets mixed up. As in the Brahma Sutra they say, defining Maya, it is something which is anirvachaniya. You cannot explain it with words, because these verses say that one who has to approach the one has to have an holistic approach to spiritual life. It is like accepting the nut, accepting the shell, and accepting everything uh, from the fruit, and then getting the nuts out of it. But it is just like trying to separate our body consciousness and at the same time replacing it with some kind of uh, gross thing. So Sri Ramakrishna says, but the problem is when you see her, not the problem, the solution is when you see the Divine Mother, her, and you appreciate her, then the body consciousness vanishes. In the ideal situation, if he is deeply devoted to his devotional life or spiritual life, then the body consciousness has to vanish. That, and he has to feel, one feels that the soul is separate from the body. So the spirit or the soul, that intimate connection between the soul and the body, is responsible for our suffering. That's why great religious leaders, they, to keep the secular or the gross to influence the subtle, they perform the sadhana. So once you perform the sadhana, you are in direct contact. You see that Ishta. Then you go a bit further, then you see the wonderful mantra that the Guru has given you, which stands as wonderful symbols in a very quiet place. This stands, these shell, here by the shell, it is meant the pure spirit. So if it is pure spirit, it is like the shell. If the pure spirit which is behind the gross body, if that is not separated from the gross, then the spirit doesn't have any meaning. The pure consciousness vanishes, and only the Prakriti or the Jada or the inert Prakriti is at your disposal. So for a person whose body consciousness has gone by the grace of God, then that happens only when you have the full grace of the Divine Mother. So normally that is what Vedanta explains, whether you call it Divine Mother or call it Maya, it is the same. The idea that Prakriti or the world as we see it, the gross world as we see it, has always, through our discrimination, we have to consider that as an impermanent thing and consider only the spirit and spirit alone, the consciousness alone within, is the one thing one should hold on to. If we don't do it, it will be like failing to remove the uh, covering of the shell, because it is raw and it is still, one has to completely cover. One cannot just remove the shell, it has to be cut, because the shell is attached to the seed. So or maybe the shell is attached to the nut. Now by this time, Sri Ramakrishna is just mentioning this, but Keshav enters the room by the eastern door. They who had seen him in Brahmo Samaj temple or in the town hall are struck dumb seeing him. He is a veritable skeleton covered with skin. He is not able to, I mean, uh, do anything otherwise. So, in the meantime, Thakur gets up from the couch and sits on the floor. Seeing Thakur, Keshav salutes him for a long time, because Keshav has become very emotional. he is in a position where he is in a position where he is going into ecstasy just by repeating the name of the Divine Mother. And Sri Krishna, you remember, has just come down from Samadhi, because hearing that Keshav is getting such visions, he himself goes into ecstasy, because that is what he expects from devotees. That is what he expects from great spiritual aspirants. So both are respecting each other by saluting each other. Thakur comes and Keshav Chandra salutes him as if he is an ordinary devotee. Though he is the leader of the movement, he is not ashamed to, or he doesn't feel diffident to just prostrate before Sri Ramakrishna, whom he respected so much. After the salutation, he sits up. Thakur is still in the state of ecstasy. What is he saying to himself? He is talking to the Divine Mother. So Sri Ramakrishna is now in a very inspired mood, learning that Keshav Chandra Sen now and then goes into a trance-like state. Sri Ramakrishna is himself muttering something to Holy Mother or to the Divine Mother, and he seems to be talking. That is what Sri Ramakrishna used to do whenever he saw in his Bhava Samadhi the vision of the Divine Mother. He would communicate with her as if it's a real living entity, which it was for him. It was more true than this world that we see around. So the next chapter, now the conversation is going on. Keshav has just arrived, but M has given it a different title. It says Brahman and Shakti are indivisible, God's divine sport in man. So regarding these two themes, now Keshav and Sri Ramakrishna will discuss. Now Keshav has raised his voice and said, because he was sick, he was not able to speak loudly. But now he has done, and then the voice says, I have come, I have come. So that means he had such a deep love for this place, deep love for Sri Ramakrishna. And then Keshav raises his voice and says, I have come, I have come. He is also ecstatic. He holds Sri Ramakrishna's left hand and begins to stroke it gently. Thakur is intoxicated in bhava. He is saying so many things spontaneously, and all the devotees are listening to him spellbound. You often don't see Thakur bestowing his grace on somebody like he did that day on Keshav Chandra Sen. And not only that, he explained to him what is true spirituality. That's the reason why Keshav has come in the first place. So, Sri Ramakrishna says, now, as long as one retains one's upadhis, upadhis means the labels that we put. I am a rich man, I am a strong man, I am a poor man, or I am a talented man, and all those upadhis, they are considered as upadhis because though these things explain you, we go from the ultimate consciousness to the diversions or the diversity of Prakriti. So Sri Ramakrishna is sort of trying to convey that as long as one is attached to this upadhi, that I am a rich man, I am a poor man, unless he merges his ego with the cosmic ego, he is not going to have any kind of peace or sense of liberation. So people like Keshav, Prasanna, Amrita and so on are different perceptions of plurality. So Sri Ramakrishna is trying to explain, you see, here is Keshav, here is Prasanna, here is Amrita. Maybe you are now saying different things because you have to perceive them as plural. You can't say it is the one thing. But if one is aware that it is the one consciousness which has become being. So it is the one consciousness behind all the variety, all the diversity that we see. Behind all diversity is the sense of unity or the universal aspect which tends to remain hidden. Now, Sri Ramakrishna is continuing. He said, what happens when one acquires ultimate jnana or knowledge, or one sees that same consciousness in the world around you. Now, this is a very significant statement. Sri Ramakrishna says, when one has attained ultimate jnana, one is aware not intellectually, but intuitively, that it is one consciousness behind many things. So, one has to take into account that unless ultimate jnana comes, you see the consciousness as separate. You see jiva, one jiva and his consciousness. Another jiva, maybe a superior jiva and his consciousness. But unless you acquire ultimate jnana, you don't have the feeling. You don't feel the same consciousness has differentiated itself and created the world. Its creatures, its 24 cosmic principles. These were the principles with which, these were the, you may say, the ultimate is realized, and even after it is differentiated into the world, its creatures and the 24 cosmic principles, it is there in Sankhya Yoga, or it is there, this has been described in the Sankhya text as Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is pure consciousness, which though it pervades every human being, it pervades the differentiated world, not only the human being, but also plants, animals, stones, inert things. But the capacity and the effect of this particular thing is the vision of ultimate jnana. The effect is overwhelming. Any human being or any sadhaka, when he acquires this ultimate jnana, which is not a very easy thing, to separate prakriti as one separates the shell from from the nut. The nut is, the shell is clinging to the nut. We have to patiently wait, or maybe use a special tool to remove the flesh. So also consciousness is something which is so inherent and mixed with the world, its creatures, and the 24 cosmic principles, that whenever we start thinking about it, we are identifying with this prakriti, the world, its creatures, and the 24 cosmic principles. That is a very big discussion. We have discussed it often, that prakriti, how prakriti manifests and how Purusha manifests. So, Purusha is that subtle awareness which percolates. For want of a better word, we have to explain it this way. The same Purusha is differentiated. In fact, it does not enter in that sense. It differentiates itself. So, it doesn't really matter if you are able to hold on to the principle of consciousness to the exclusion of anything else. If one can do it, then one does have a complete, you can say, ultimate jnana. Now, there is one more conversation now which follows this. So, now Sri Ramakrishna is trying to show the unity behind the diverse world that we see. But what is the advantage of doing that? After having seen the unity behind this diversity, what do we do with the diversity? So, Sri Ramakrishna says, even so, there is a special manifestation of God or God's power in man. Truly, he has become all, but at certain places there is lesser or greater manifestation. And in some we will find tremendous spiritual power, and in some there is hardly any spiritual power. The same thing or the same person or the same the same consciousness appears as this world in different shapes and forms. Then Vidyasagar once asked that, so God has given more power or less power to some and more power to others? He says, definitely. So Sri Ramakrishna says, I told Keshav If it were not so, how could one person defeat 50 others? Besides, why we should have come to see you? So there is more power of God in the receptacle in which he manifests itself, his divine Leela. So that is what Sri Ramakrishna is telling now. Then he says the landlord can be found anywhere in the estate, but he is often found he can be seen only in the drawing room. You can't expect to go to the bedroom or to any other kitchen or any other dining hall. That's not the system. If you want to meet somebody, they have to come to the drawing room. So also the heart of the devotee is like the drawing room in our body. So that is where the Lord gives his vision. That is where at that point, when we come, as we go deeper and deeper in meditation, then to develop this, to propitiate the Adya Shakti is the only way. If you criticize Adya Shakti, then she will not help you to realize the underlying unity between this Shakti. Now he says, Sri Ramakrishna says, what are the signs of it, of this type of empowerment? Wherever much work is done, there is power is especially manifested. So there are so many activities you can do. Some of the activities which appear to be miraculous, which appear to be uh, phenomenal, they have more manifestation of that consciousness. That is what Sri Ramakrishna is trying to tell Keshav Sen, and also he told earlier Vidyasagar. He said, how can you consider everybody to be equal? It is not possible. There is diversity, not only diversity in different, by way of different forms, but there is diversity in the potentiality of each being to manifest that divinity. Some are more spiritual, some are less spiritual. Even in the material world, some are rich, some are poor, some are middle class. So you'll find that manifestation either in the gross sense or in the subtle sense. Intellectual capacity, some have more, some have less. So wherever the power of the Lord or the Shakti is manifest more, there will be a great difference or a great diversity. You can't treat everybody as equal. That's the idea. When you come to the Prakriti side of it, when as Purusha we are all one, so there is an underlying unity. But as Prakriti, we are all different, and there are grades, different grades. In some people, the power is more. In some people, it is manifested less. So Adya Shakti, Sri Ramakrishna continues now, is not different from Parabrahman. Now, having explained the power of the Divine Mother to manifest differently, or power of Shakti to manifest differently in different human beings and animals and other species, at the same time, it from the ultimate standpoint, it is not separate from Parabrahman or the Supreme Brahman. You cannot think of one without thinking of another. It is a very simple logic that what is not bound is free. It is like saying that what is not light is dark. If darkness goes, then light is what can do this. Like the darkness can be removed by lighting a lamp, by shedding light. So also this awareness, or the awareness of the fact that Adya Shakti, the primeval power, is not different for Parabrahma, Supreme Brahman. Otherwise, there will be a sort of misunderstanding that whether you call the Divine Mother Avyakta, or whether you call Purusha, the eternal, immortal existence, Sat, Chit and Ananda, it is the same, because that Adya Shakti has manifest and it has come out of the Supreme Brahman. So, and Sri Ramakrishna says, how can you think of one without thinking of the other? For example, he says, think of the gem and its luster. So this luster which we see in the gem, you can't say that you just remove the luster, I want the gem itself. The gem has value on only if its luster is there. So if you do not hold a gem, you cannot think of its effulgence. So unless you come approach it by a gem, then automatically the other qualities associated with that uh, gem come with the gift. I mean, if the gem has been given to somebody, then you'll find out ways and means to see the beautiful luster. But if you do not hold a gem at all, you cannot think of its effulgence. What he means, Sri Ramakrishna here is pointing out is, if you don't accept Shakti, if you don't accept the Divine Mother, then you cannot think of its effulgence. So Advait Vedanta or the higher Vedanta believes that we don't need, it is the Brahman alone that is really significant. But till one attains to that state, this partially Vishishta Advaitic explanation that if there is no gem or if there is no luster, if you do not hold a gem, if there is no gem, there is no luster. And similarly, you cannot think of the gem without thinking of its brilliance or luster. It is like Sri Ramakrishna gives another example. One is the gem and its shining quality. The other is, it is like the snake and its serpentine movement. The moment a snake moves, till then you can mistake it for a stationary rope or something like that. But when it moves, then you understand it has got life. It is not simply the thing will remain static. So the snake cannot remain static if it is alive. It will allow the moment you think of a snake, you think of its motive power, you think of its imagination. So that is very important. So one cannot say that I believe in Brahman alone and I don't care for Shakti. So he came to revive this idea of Shakti, Sri Ramakrishna. And further on, the Brahmo Samaj people who very often asked a lot of questions. That is why Sri Ramakrishna is spontaneously explaining to them. He says, you people don't believe in the Divine Mother. You people believe in the monistic approach, a rather rational approach to God. It's fine. But that doesn't mean you should discourage other people. So, whatever it is, Sri Ramakrishna is very clear. He is saying Shiva is just as Shakti is powerless unless Shiva is there at the background. He says the converse is also true. So if we have Brahman or Purusha, then if its manifestation can be seen only through Prakriti, and that is why Prakriti has been raised to the level of the Brahman. So Prakriti is just, or Mahamaya is just an aberration in the sense it gives motion to a static entity which is known as consciousness. Consciousness is of course influencing other people also, but at the same time you will find that anybody who tries to separate these two, saying that I want the milk or I want a snake but I don't want to be bitten, something like that. So the power and the one which is suffused with that power, one who is neutral, they have to know that Shakti and Purusha, they are connected to each other. It's only the motion that differentiates or that changes the nature with respect to each other. But when finally you, in the ultimate analysis, it is the same Shakti in a dormant state, it has appeared as Brahman or as Purusha. Now, Brahmo Samaj and seeing God in man, the difference between the aspirant and the perfected. This is a new topic. Sri Ramakrishna says, Adya Shakti, the primordial power of Brahman, has differentiated into the phenomenal world into living beings and the 24 cosmic the 24 cosmic principles. 24 cosmic principles we have discussed earlier in Sankhya, that these principles are responsible for the different play of nature, the different gunas, which are nothing but permutations and combinations of these 24 cosmic principles. So, Sri Ramakrishna now says it is a question of involution and evolution. Now, this is a very important thing, because Swami Vivekananda did not agree like Darwin did, that things evolve, the survival of the fittest. If you are not fit, you develop a body that is fit. So that is the idea of Darwin's theory of evolution. Whereas in Indian tradition, if there is any involution, if there is any evolution, there has to be an involution. So the totality of creation lies dormant in its potential state. So then once one does consider Ishvara as a dearest being, a dearest Ishta, and starts meditating, what exactly happens? That's the idea. So his personality seems to be merging in the personality that is evolving. So according to certain aspirants, they think the totality of creation, it is a truthful fact, that is what Indian philosophy holds, that the whole creation, totality of creation lies in a dormant or potential state. So only when it is manifest we come to understand. So you can't say, we can't separate the snake with its wriggling motion. Then it can be called a rope or something else. But this here, the sun, here the Prakriti, the individual soul gets lost in the personality of the Lord. So that is what is meant by Vishishtadvaita, where every sadhaka is told that he is part of God. Unlike Advaita, which says it's only the pure consciousness, the pure consciousness that exists. The other things are all within the realm of Maya. But Vishishtadvaitins and principally worshippers of Devi, Shakta, Krishna tradition, they all believe that their personality, limited personality with the ego, gets merged in the ultimate personality of God, whom that personal God, who is nothing but a it is nothing but, according to Sankhya, it is nothing but the sum total of all Purushas. But Vedanta says we don't have to even establish that idea that there are several Purushas. He also refutes it. But Shankaracharya says that this consciousness which is at the background of everything, which is unitary, can be understood only when the diversity is seen. So you don't have to show these two things separately. If diversity is seen, normally unity is not seen. Only Shardananji wanted that he wants to see Swami Shardananji's birthday we are celebrating today. He believed that, he asked Thakur, I want that realization where I can see God in everything. He said that is the last stage of spiritual life. You try to practice the other sadhanas. Then he said, I'll wait, but I will take only the essence. I will of this Prakriti. The essence of Prakriti or the Purusha in its dormant or potential state does not appear to create this world or interact with anything. The moment creation comes, though in the background this Purusha is there, the supreme, then slowly the ego and the world and all the 24 principles, they appear. Then we see Sri Ramakrishna explains to Keshav Chandra Sen why he has so much love for this young unmarried boys. He says, why do I care so much for Rakhal, Narendra and other young men? Hajra also once said that why do you go about thinking of these young men always? When will you give your mind to God? So this is a very common question where people ask, if I am busy thinking of many outer things, the gross world, how can I think about God? So he says, if you think about these boys, Hajra told him, when will you give your mind to God? Keshav smiles because he knows Sri Krishna is not going to be attached to any of these people like Naren and all. It is because they see divinity and Sri Krishna, but Sri Krishna here tries to explain what happened afterwards. This set me to thinking seriously about this fact. And I said to the Divine Mother, what is this, Mother? Hajra asked why I think so much of these young men. Then I asked Bholanath. Bholanath said one can uh, find the same illustration in the Mahabharata. When a person comes down from Samadhi, where can he rest his mind? So, touching the consciousness at a higher level, when you come down from Samadhi, the mind which was there has to rest somewhere. So, he instead of making it rest, because he has gone by the process of neti neti, he has seen the temporary world and he has seen the binding capacity of the temporary world and has touched the highest. But now, when he comes down, he is not so dangerous to mix because he has come with a realization. So he tries to keep company with people who do not allow him, or whose satsang does not allow him to go to the level of tamas. He doesn't want to go back. The sadhaka is happy with sattvic people. So he says he cannot help seeking the company of devotees endowed with the quality of sattva. This dictum of Mahabharata at once relieved my mind. So Thakur seems to be saying that this was the problem that was disturbing me, but now I know it has relieved a lot. But then Sri Krishna is very kind to Hajra. He says Hajra is not to blame. When a person is a spiritual aspirant, he should give his whole mind to God, saying not this, not this. It is different in the case of a perfected soul, but for all others, they have to first transcend everything and then come down. If it is something like avatara, but avataran means coming down. So some people think going up or realizing the Brahman itself is the goal of life, as Swami Shardanji was told, but he clearly told Sri Krishna that I I want you to come. Even after perfection, there are some souls who come back to show that what I evolved myself to, the level at which I evolved myself. Now, after evolving to the highest state of Brahman, you come back the same way and accept the duality. But here, now you're not attached to duality in a helpless way. You have full control knowing that it is dual, but it is still existing. But I have no fear because I have touched the Lord. I have touched the consciousness, the deeply embedded consciousness which is animating the whole universe. So that is how we come to realize the fact that it is, especially to realize the fact that though one may have the so-called attachment, a Jnani will always be able to detach himself at short notice, or he may not get attached at all. He doesn't have to forcibly detach, but maybe to see I mean, Sri Krishna here is pointing out that Hajra is not to blame, because when a person is a spiritual aspirant, he has to give his whole mind to God, saying not this, not this. But after that, when after attaining God, one realizes the fact of evolution and involution. This idea of evolution and involution is explained in a very beautiful way by Sri Ramakrishna. He says, when the butter is taken out of the buttermilk, one realizes that the butter is not essentially different from the buttermilk. It's its essence. So, nor the buttermilk is essentially different from butter. So, one has a full realization of God. One who has a full realization of God, that he feels that God is everything. Only at some places he manifests himself in a greater degree than others. So, this is the concept of uh, Purusha and Prakriti, or maybe you can say Shakti and Shiva, and how it leads to the idea of different levels of understanding of this concept. So we have the Dvaita, where God is eternally separate, he is an Ishvara, but we come to Vishishta Dvaita when he perceives that same person who has reached Samadhi, he perceives that this world itself is made of the different objects created by the guna, so he doesn't get attached to them. So we will now take up some questions if there are, otherwise we'll take your leave. I don't think there are any more questions. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.